Hey folks, welcome to episode 35 of the Modern Agile Show. I am thrilled to be here with Ainsley Nies, a longtime friend and an amazing person. Ainsley is a real true veteran Agilist, an early pioneer. She's been involved in these Agile ideas for decades. Did a whole bunch of stuff at HP. Right. I remember all of the early work you guys did back there, and she is the co-author of this wonderful book here called Liftoff, which is an amazing book that we're going to talk about in the show. She also teaches an Agile Management course at Golden Gate University, which I believe is part of an MBA.
Yes, it's right? Yeah.
So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I love chartering. So,
yes, I know.
It's a delight to have you here, and I have the second edition of the book.
Good.
So, in fact, I'd love your signature. If you could sign my book, because I know that I have the second edition, I have no signatures. So there you go.
And the other signer will.
Well, Diana Larson will be coming to the show soon, probably in about a month. So we're excited to have her on as well. And we go back a long ways. So we will talk about three in this show quite a bit. And people always ask me, when you say three, who's three? Okay, so let's just get this out of the way. He passed. His name was something the third. So like a John Smith, and then there's John Smith the second, and then there's John Smith the third, which is a Roman numeral. So three decided at some point that he was that Roman numeral, three, and the other parts were already used up in other people. So that's three. So I attended your your ceremony together.
Yes, you did.
And that was like a decade ago, maybe, or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was early 2000s.
Yeah,
I think 2002.
Oh, okay, so
or 5.
Yeah, then
And his remembrance.
Yes.
You gave a wonderful talk.
Yes. Well, he continues to be impactful on my work. This book wouldn't exist without him to some extent. And however, you and Diana have taken this even further, and you've given it a wonderful metaphor of liftoff. So I love that concept. And what's it like being the author of this book?
Well, it's kind of surprised me, actually, to be in that position at one point. So, and I have to say, writing with Diana was really, for me anyway, I learned as much as I was able and as much as I expressed.
Yes.
It's quite a process, and it's great. Working with Diana was fabulous. We have many similarities, but I think the reason we did well with this and felt really aligned on it is we have somewhat different backgrounds. Yeah. So I spend a lot of time in the PMI world, which was not an area that Diana had spent a lot of time in. And so we often had different perspectives of people who might be reading the book and ways to approach it, ways that each kind of thinking has its merits, and how to express that.
I'm curious, did you charter the book?
We did. We know better than to write a book about something and not do it ourselves.
I am not surprised at all.
And actually, that was a fabulous experience for the content.
Yes.
Because then we knew exactly what it was going to take for other people to do this.
It's marvelous.
And we fine-tuned a lot of our original ideas by doing it ourselves.
And I imagine you updated the charter as we learned.
Or created it as we learned. Yes. We came up with new pieces every time we did something.
So were there any, can you remember any parts like objectives or vision or mission from that charter?
I would have brought it with me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we had no, I don't think we put an example of ours in this book. It might have been in the first edition.
Okay, yeah. That's wonderful, though.
Yeah, but I know we kept that information.
Yeah.
Because occasionally I look back to, oh, did we really do that?
Oh, that's great. So, and the charter was between the two of you, and there was a community that you associated with it as well then? Like, in other words, in your charter, did you have defined who's part of the charter, who's in the community? That might be something that...
I don't know if we thought about the community in that regard. We had a sense of who might be interested in this,
right? Okay,
and who might be better off with it that maybe wasn't interested.
Right.
So we did a kind of a big set of thinking about who could benefit from this.
So are people benefiting from it? Are you now finding more folks are doing liftoffs and chartering?
I don't know about more because we don't have a beginning, we don't have a measurement.
Yes.
But
it's always hard.
in traveling around and being out with people and at the Agile conferences and things like that, yes, I certainly hear more about people chartering than I did some years ago. But
well, it's great because when people ask me like, what do I read? How do I learn more?
Right.
I obviously point them to this book because to me this is the definitive guide to this art.
Well, and I have to admit, it doesn't hurt that this is required reading for my class.
Oh, yes.
Yes, so,
for your,
so I know more people are getting to see this,
Your MBA students.
Yes, the MBA students.
So what do they struggle with the most? Like in terms of picking up Liftoff, trying to be an implementer of this, what are the biggest struggles you notice?
Well, sometimes people that are used to, they have an idea of what a charter is, and this is an Agile charter.
Yes.
So for people that are more used to doing traditional charters, there are some similarities. Certainly there's a similarity with very general intent of why you might want to do it.
Right.
But there's a big difference in who's involved in the chartering. If it's Agile, it is very different than who's usually involved otherwise.
Yes.
In more traditional ways of doing it. And we do a lot of things differently in this. But the biggest struggle that I have come across when people are doing chartering is understanding the difference, because we talk about the vision for the work and then the mission of the work.
Yes.
And helping people understand that difference seems to be a struggle.
Yeah.
Even with examples, because the book has a number of clear examples so that people can look and see the difference.
Right.
But, well, I was going to say grokking it, and not everybody remembers that word, but those of us who are around remember grokking. But people don't really get the difference.
I myself, in my early days of learning chartering, would sometimes write things that I thought was a vision, and then 3 would say to me, that's a really nicely written mission statement.
Yes.
And it took me a while, I believe, before I got to the point where I could write a real vision statement.
Right.
And still to this day, sometimes people will say, actually, I think that would make a great mission statement.
Right.
So it's really not easy.
Right.
But 3 would often talk about seeing something off in the future.
Right.
What would life be like in the future as the vision? Not that it was something we have today.
Right.
And so that helped me a bit.
Yeah. Well, I think because people who are like to get to work, especially when you're talking about team members, they're together, they know for a reason, and they've got something they want to do. And because that's often the first focus, then you're kind of mission oriented, so then if you're starting off mission oriented, it's easy to see why they're not particularly vision focused,
right?
Because they're focused on something very, that they can put a boundary on
Boundary
and
around.
things like that. So,
Yeah.
so it is sometimes very difficult for them to look outside. Well, what's going to happen once this has been created?
Yes.
And what's the life of the customer going to be? How is that going to be different now?
Right.
And
right.
that's the vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about why are we doing it, not how are we doing it.
Right.
Right.
Yes, that's really nice. Yeah, we you mentioned Badass, the book by
Oh,
Kathy,
yes.
Kathy
Yeah.
Sierra.
Kathy Sierra, yes.
How does that factor into your teaching about vision?
Well, it helps with the perspective to take, right?
Yeah.
How do we want our customer? We don't want them to go, oh, I bought something new. We want to go, oh, far out. Now life is better.
This thing I bought made me badass.
Yes.
And now I'm also, it's made my life more awesome.
Right.
So that's tied to vision.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then mission is much more about, so vision seems like it could be off in the future, but also maybe many years out.
Depends on what you're building.
Depends on what you're building. So when you think about that, is a typical charter having a vision that's kind of far out in the future, but then the mission is more like focused on the next 6 months, or do you find it like for your book?
Well, it varies all the time.
Yes.
Because sometimes people come in, they want something right away.
Right.
Which means it's going to be more of a short-term look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But do they have a longer-term vision for what they want ultimately, or I struggle with this too.
Yeah, it's the customer's viewpoint at this point.
Yeah.
And so, depending on what the person, whoever's paying to have this work done has some ideas about this too.
Yes.
And that's why they need to be involved to a certain degree or not just to a certain degree, they need to be involved with even helping the team understand what the vision is, because the customer or whoever's representing the customer is going to have that information.
So the goal donor must.
The goal donor, there we go.
That's the term 3 would use.
A threeism, yes.
But or as he would joke around, the goal donor,
right,
as the ones who are donating
donates the goal
to the team,
which is also right. Sounds like the gold donor.
Gold donor.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So they basically have to be involved, obviously.
Or someone representing them.
Yes.
That input has to be there to come up with anything valid.
Right. And just going back for a minute, what's the difference? How could you say, what's the difference between traditional chartering and agile chartering?
Well, if you look at the work that usually goes into it, there are some different things we talk about. One is focusing on alignment, meaning if doing agile chartering really helps get everybody in line from the customer or the customer representative to, depending on where you're working, certain amounts of folks or departments that will also be involved along with the team. So everybody understands it the same way.
From the gold owners all the way down to the team members, everybody gets it.
Everybody has the same understanding of what's supposed to happen. And often how, but you can't always predict that. That evolves.
I years ago heard someone use the term connective tissue.
Yeah.
And I loved it because our bodies need connective tissue in order to move, and they said it's like organizational connective tissue or this chartering helps them.
Right. And so some of the things we do in agile chartering that I am, at least in my latest experience, it does not happen in traditional chartering.
Right.
So we do a couple of things there. One is called a context diagram.
Yes.
And that is a very big picture. And these are things that are drawn, not filling out little columns and something in a spreadsheet.
Right.
These are big drawings
that
can be done either on a whiteboard or a flip chart or something. But it's where you usually have a customer representative in with this of some kind, and the team, and maybe one or two other people who have a lot of input.
Yes.
And if you can get more representatives involved, maybe there are, if you're in a big company, other departments you're going to be working closely with, bring them in for this as well.
So that,
because they are all part of the context.
Yeah.
So
I see.
if you create the context diagram
Yes.
with a large number of folks that you're actually going to be working with, you probably get it pretty close to right the first time.
Yeah.
You also may uncover some interesting things. And I give you an example of that. I was doing that at work one time with a group of people, and we had some of our current customers there for a new project, and we said, and you know, the information we'll be sending you, because you diagram not only who's there, but their interactions
Yes.
between the teams and anybody you're interacting with, anybody needs to be part of this context.
So the arrows are going into the circle and then
And
the ones
out.
coming out of the
Right.
circle.
And
Yeah.
one of the things we discovered in that discussion with this one internal customer was, we said, and we will continue to send you this report. And they said, what? We've never seen that report. And we said, well, we've been sending it to you for 5 years. And they said, really? So it's amazing what you can find out in these conversations.
So this you have this wonderful, these three circles: purpose, context, and
Alignment.
And alignment.
Right.
As a way of thinking about what
Chartering
does.
is, yes.
Yeah. Purpose, context, and alignment. I love that. I learned from David Schmaltz
Oh, yes.
this
yes.
concept of that in terms of context, like that the people you're going to work with.
Yes.
He would say the community. He'd call that the community.
Right.
And he'd say it's always bigger than you think. That is, you're always going to be finding more people in the organization or more people outside of the organization
Right.
that you need to involve
Right.
in thinking about your charter.
Right.
Does that echo? I mean, that seems like what you're saying about context.
Well, yes, you'll often, in doing the context work, you find out people you didn't know about.
Right.
And you might have people that are in that group while you're working on this might ask you, well, did you talk to so-and-so, or did you talk to so-and-so? Or
Yeah.
One of the things I discovered, and that I started doing at HP when we were having retrospectives, and it made me think of this because we were kind of doing those kind of covertly at first because we weren't supposed to be doing anything like that.
Graffiti. I call it agile
Yes,
graffiti.
but one of the things we learned in that group about knowing who was involved or not was finding those things out when you're talking to people.
Right.
You know, they just tell you. You know, did you talk to them?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they do the same thing we do, and
Right.
so you find out the more people you talk to, the more information you get.
Yeah. So speak to a minute. We talked briefly before about speed, and that people want to just get started.
Right.
Can you speak a little bit to that? Like, how does that go together or not with liftoff or chartering?
Well, I think if people don't want to charter at all, they won't.
Right.
Right, because they're in a hurry.
Yeah.
And so I know when I first heard about even doing anything before the project started, we used to call them at work data sheets. And we're going to create a data sheet for the
Yes,
project.
yes.
And it had bits of information, lots of little bits that all fit on one side of the page.
Yes.
And that was the whole plan
Right.
right there.
Right.
Nothing else. And so that if you're in a hurry, then use Lean Startup.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that's really the kind of hurry you're in.
Right.
But people that charter usually want to do it right.
Yeah.
And so I imagine there are ways to hurry it up.
Yeah.
But
Well, I love genuine speed, but I think there's a lot of hurrying,
yeah,
and I contrast speed with hurrying.
okay.
So if you hurry, you're end up going to hurt
Right.
yourself. You're going to fall. You're going to bump into something.
Right.
But if you are genuinely fast, so I think chartering goes with speed ultimately because if we're not aligned,
Well, it will speed you in the future.
that's
yes,
right. So
yes.
it's long-term speed.
Yeah.
Short-term, it feels like slower. I mean,
Right.
we've done it here at Industrial
Well-
Logic, and it sometimes feels like I'm having my teeth cleaned
Right.
for days Because it takes a lot of time to form that connective tissue.
That's the assumption is if you're doing something like a liftoff, it's actually going to be reasonably fast.
Right.
This isn't a,
Right. So it's not like heavyweight chartering. It's lighter weight.
It's liftoff.
Yes.
It implies some energy and propulsion.
Right.
Right.
I love the metaphor. But the I guess so. Chartering's not mentioned in Scrum.
Of course not.
It's not mentioned in SAFe.
Right.
It's not mentioned in any of the Agile frameworks that are out there.
Right.
It's not mentioned.
Right.
So to me, I mean, I think this is like a secret. We were just talking about the secrets of consulting.
Right.
This is to me one of the secrets of agility. Is this practice of liftoff.
Right.
And we want more of the audience needs to know about this and this book.
Right.
And learning the art of liftoff is, I think, super important. This is not just it's not just an optional skill.
Right.
I mean, this is critical for really going fast. I've had teams where when we didn't do this, we couldn't collaborate well.
Pay for it later.
Yeah,
right?
You pay later.
It's what kind of debt would this be? Liftoff debt or something? Yeah.
It is. It's like alignment debt.
Alignment debt. Yeah. Right.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
So
one of the things we have in there, rather than do risk assessment, which is pretty heavy duty usually, the way most people think about it, we have something called a prospective analysis.
Okay. Yes.
And the concept is not just what could go wrong, which of course doesn't set you off in a great mindset.
Right.
If you're thinking about, we better be watching all the time for bad things could happen.
Right.
It's what might happen. And so it's also about, well, yes, you might want to identify things that could happen that would negatively affect you, but you also want to look for what cool things might happen.
Yeah.
What good things might happen.
Yes.
Maybe we discover, because we work so closely, of course, with a customer representative of some kind, product owner, whatever you call them, right? That we find out that when we've only done 4 or 5 iterations, guess what? The customer says, whoa, you know what? I can get it on the market right now.
Right.
Right now.
Yeah. I don't need you to spend another 6 months.
Right.
I'll take what you got right now.
Right. And if we start thinking about that early, and maybe before we even start, this gives thoughts to the customer as well, and thought may affect how you prioritize the backlog.
Yeah.
It could affect a lot of things if you start thinking about what possibilities are out there that would be really interesting that might happen that are good.
Love it. Love it. Another question for you in terms of user stories and the charter. How do those go together, or have you thought about that?
Personally, frankly, I have never thought about that combination of user story and charter, although a charter might be an amazing user story, maybe for one of the people that are paying for the project.
Yes. Well, I think that you cannot write a user story well without
a charter. Yeah, I don't think I ever thought about that.
How are you going to know what to work on if you don't understand where you're heading? Right? But without the charter, I can write a user story to do anything. The user's going to do this, the user's going to do that, but I got to know what I'm heading towards.
Well, but the user is supposed to be the person that gives you the information for the user story.
Correct. But it's got to be aligned with my charter, right?
Right. Well, that would be interesting if the user came up with an idea for a user story that kind of didn't fit in what everybody understood. That's really good. Okay, I should.
Oh, that might mean
maybe we need a third
edition.
Yeah.
Well, it could be that maybe that new insight from the customer means we have to recharter. I mean, this was something 3 would always hammer on, which was chartering is an ing thing.
Yes.
It's a chartering, just like retrospecting and anything else.
Well, we always say that it's the chartering, not the charter. We repeat that in the book.
Yes.
Because it is all about doing the work versus a piece of paper or whatever's on your wall about this.
Yeah.
Because like all Agile documents, they're living documents. The expectation is they will change whenever there's new information.
Yes, love it.
And the charter is no different.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ainsley, for coming here up to Berkeley and being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I would highly recommend that if you haven't checked out the book Liftoff, and the subtitle is Start and Sustain Successful Agile Teams, written by Ainsley and Diana Larson. These are people that I respect tremendously in the Agile field, that if you really want to do well, pay attention to them. Thanks for coming.
Well, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
And thanks for signing my book.
Okay.
And if you like the show, please share it with others. And thank you for watching. We'll see you on a future episode.